Let's dive in. Tell me a little bit about the best on marketing strategy. What is it all about? And then I know I'll be diving in with questions for you as we go.
Okay, great. Well, the best on marketing strategy are three of the strategies that I've used throughout my whole business. And my husband and I have been married and business partners, still in love, still like each other for 30 years. So I've been doing this for the better part of 30 years. And the first part is to write a best-selling book. Can't get to bestseller, just writing a book is good enough, but writing a best-selling book. And the reason you want to write a book is because it's the authority. You wrote the book on it. People look at you when you become an author, they're like, oh my God, that is such an amazing task. I haven't done it. There are people out there right now that have been trying to write that book for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 2 years. So when you actually write a book, you go up in that authority thing when people are looking at you like, oh, you're a published author. Oh, and you're a best-selling published author, because I'm a 10-time best-selling author, right? So I know the power that it brings. So now you got people looking at you. You're like, your authority is high. You're riding a wave. The next thing you should do is start an influential podcast. Influential podcast is just you talking about what you need to talk about that your people are going to be listening to and checking out and probably following, so you can get those interview skills up. You can be unafraid that you're going to meet somebody for the first time, just like you and I just did, and we could just have a great conversation right off the bat and find out everything we need to know. That's what a podcast will do for you. And then number three is to host an expert summit. Now you're taking the authority that you've built up already. You've taken those interview skills and the popularity, because you probably interviewed some people that you would like to work with or who are going to lead you to who you want to work with, and you're inviting them all into a virtual summit. Because I like virtual stuff. I don't really do a lot of in person, so I like virtual summit. They're easy to do. I like to do mine in one day and interview after interview. I don't do the recording things anymore, although that's how I started. So any way you want to do it, just do a summit. Pick your guests. Your guests should be people who are looking to work with you, or who can lead you to who you want to work with. And they have some authority themselves, because don't want to just do a summit and have nobody show up. You want people to bring in their audience. What does
Mhm.
that do? That ups your authority again. That lets people see you, and they know that you're awesome because you're interviewing these people. You're asking them questions. You found them, you brought them to the front. So those are my three, the best unmarketing strategies, because guess what? With every one of those strategies, I have made money. I have gotten new clients. I've upped my authority. I've expanded my brand. And now, people look at me and they go, "Oh, Carol's doing another summit. Let me get on there real quick." Or Carol's put another book out. Let me do this. If you did this best on marketing strategy back to back, the book, the podcast, and the summit, it would most likely take you about 9 months, about the time it takes us to do a baby and birth it, so that at the end you're going to have all these people who love you. Your email list has grown. You've made some money in the process, and you are an authority figure. And then all you have to do after that is wash, rinse, and repeat. Not necessarily in that order, but just wash, rinse, and repeat, and keep on doing your thing. And people will still be drawn to you, because those summits still bring in people time and time again. Podcasts bring in people because you're getting in their head. Every time you come live, you are getting in those people's heads. And then the book is going to forever be bringing you something, because you can always say, "Hey, I wrote the book. Here's one. Do you want a copy? Here, how about you? You can have a copy." So, instant authority all around. And I've been using that. I published my first book in 2017. It went to number one international bestseller in 3 countries. So I was like, "Ooh, I may be on to something. Let me keep going."
I love it. Okay, so I have lots of questions. So as
Okay.
far as the best-selling book, so
Hmm.
starting with the book,
Hmm.
when people hear that, they might get super overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, I've been trying to write a book for years, or I just
Right.
don't even know what I would write, or that
Hmm.
seems like it would take a lot of time. Why leading with the book? Why is that important?
Well, because I figured out the code. I cracked the code to actually get into bestseller, doing an easy book to put out there, and you can make money off of it before you even hit publish. And what I do is I do low content high value books. Now, we all saw that low content phase. I think it's still going on where you just slap some pages together. Hey, this is a journal. Yeah, you can do that. But my books have more meat in them, if you would. They are mostly journals. Now, I did get to bestseller off, a couple of traditional books, but the journals are what I teach. The journals and the planners are what I teach in my bestseller lab. The reason being is because in a journal or even a planner, the person who's purchasing it is going to do 85, at least 85% of the content, right? So you don't have to write that much. Really, if it's going to be a guided journal, you can write one sentence. What are you grateful for today? And that was actually one of my books. It was the 90-day gratitude journal for your business. I published that in 2020. That was my second best-selling book. And like I said, it had one piece of information that was going through it. The thing that made it different is I invited co-authors in. They had to pay, so I made money. Yes. And they only wrote like 250 words. I mean, we can write 250 words with our eyes closed. And they were writing about what are you grateful for in your business? That's what they were writing about. So in my bestseller lab, I teach people, look, do something that's going to be easy and quick, but it's going to be meaty and memorable, right? So you bring in these co-authors, they pay you to come in, so you're already making money. You get the book together, you become a best-selling author, they become a best-selling author. Now, I've left out some stuff in between because you got to know about, the description, the keywords, and all of that. But it's nothing that is going to take you 5 years to do. As a matter of fact, that second book that I wrote, I think I did it in like 30 days. It was really basically all done. And I had the authors together, but we took a little bit longer, especially because it was COVID. And we made a bestseller in COVID, right? People still bought books. People still did stuff. People needed to read. So it was great. And that's why I say start with that. Start with something that is easier. You don't have to, your first book does not have to be a novel. And the reason I say that is because my book coach, I wanted to write another book because I am a breast cancer survivor. My husband is a stroke survivor. And so I wanted to write this book about, I was going to call it Through the Fire, and I was going to write about our story, how we survived, how we got rehab, how we did all this stuff, and we came out shining on the other end. She's like, that is awesome. Let's write that money book first. And then you can write any other book you want. So I've always kept that in my head, the money book. What is a book that's going to make you money? That's what you put out there. Even if it's you just sell it the first time, you make a couple $100 off of it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you sell one or if you sell 1,000. Just get this thing to bestseller. You don't really need that many sales to get to bestseller. There's some other stuff behind the scenes. But once you get to bestseller, if you don't sell any more books at all, it doesn't even matter because now you're going on to that podcast and then you're going on to the summit and you're just spreading yourself all around and people are saying, you're so awesome. I know. Thank you so much.
That's so funny. Okay, so and starting with the book, I think part of that is building your authority because there's some
Yes.
stigma about being an author and being a best-selling author. So what does being an author do? How does it build your authority in the space?
Well, it's like people are looking at you, because a lot of people, like I said, and like I have said, 5 years, 10 years, they're still trying to put the first words down on that thing. And you did it. You actually accomplished something that they've been trying to do. So naturally, they're going to kind of look up to you a little bit and say, oh, wow, that's amazing. So that's what, and it's a conversation starter. So you want to start your conversation with something that is amazing and awesome and people haven't done. Writing a book is one of those. Writing a best-selling book is another one of those. So it gets you in the conversation where people want to talk to you, want to ask you, well, how did you do that so quick? Or what kind of books do you write? Or what genres are you writing another book? Whatever it is to get them talking to you. Because that's the whole thing about not using social media and really relying on our skills. We want to be visible. And everybody thinks that social media is the thing that's going to make us visible. No, it's not. It's the thing that's going to make you crazy. A lot of the times there are so many other things that'll make you visible to your people. And starting a relationship with them is one of those things. They're asking you questions, you're answering, and you're asking them questions. That's a relationship. So if you can get that with your people, even virtually, in person, it doesn't matter, through email, it doesn't matter. If you can get them to talk to you, you can make a difference in their life. You can let them know, hey, I'm here to help you. And that's what's been one of my biggest things. I've always tell people, I'm here to help you. And they don't have my put it this way, they can call me anytime, they can email me anytime, but it's on me whether when I answer them. And I have strict rules about when I answer calls and all that. So I'm not being, just slave to people. Oh my God, anytime. I used to, but I learned that that can tank your mental health. So now I have strict balancing things with me and my husband and our life and then our business. And when I talk to people and all of that, and you have to kind of keep that in mind because if you let go of it, then you're still stressed out, just like you were on social media. You're still stressed.
So true. Like the boundaries and the balance is really important and actually
Yes,
sticking to
yeah,
those things.
sticking to
I
it.
have been not great at that in the
Yeah.
past. And so that's one of my things that I've been working on is like, no, I'm sticking to the work boundaries. When I
Hmm.
say I'm cutting off, I'm cutting off. When I say I'm not working weekend, I'm not working weekend. And that's really important for us as business owners
Oh
because
yeah.
we can get consumed whether we're on social media or not.
Mm.
But I would like to see kind of like an example. So can you walk us through a book that you wrote and then the podcast, like how they go together, and then the summit that you created based off of that.
That's easy peasy because that's the first thing I did. I
Mhm.
wrote the book in 2017, Unmarket Your Business 10 Ways for Savvy Entrepreneurs to Stand Out, Stop Struggling, and Start Profiting. I was just on the scene. Nobody knew who I was. And I said, I want to make this book a bestseller. I didn't know about number one and stuff. I said, just a bestseller would be fine. And actually, the people who were coaching me, they were like, why do you want to do that? I was like, because I want it, because I can. And I did. I went to every Facebook group and community group and whatever that was talking about how to get your book to bestseller. I followed some of the things, some of the stuff I was like, okay, that's just too much. I can't do that. And it all worked together. I had all the ingredients together. Remember when Harrow was easy to get help a reporter out? It was
Mhm.
easy for you to get on. Now it's almost impossible. Well, I was in that era where it was very easy for me to get on. And I went and I asked the gurus and stuff, hey, what do you think is going to be technology? How do you think technology is going to go from here or something? And I got like probably about 20 people who are presidents and vice presidents and directors and all that to actually say something about what they thought about um, technology. That was the third chapter in the book. So when I put the book out, I messaged them and I said, hey, my book is out. I'd love it if you would share it and stuff. And they did. And those are the things that helped me actually get to bestseller. But then, since I had done a podcast before, I used to be a personal trainer for about 10 years. I ran a podcast called Fit for Life. I loved it. And I knew that it was a way to get inside people's minds to have them listen out for me every single week. I was like, I need to do a podcast. This is what I'm going to do. So I turned the book into a podcast. The book actually has 10 chapters are in the middle of it, but on the beginning and the end, it has a couple extra chapters. So I took those 10 strategies in the middle, and for each month, I said, I'm going to only talk about those strategies every week of the podcast. So I did that. So I had my content all planned out for a whole year. At the end of that year, I kept going and I actually kept that podcast going for I did 150 episodes, right? And I stopped it in 2020, and then I came back and I revived it. So I'm doing it again now. So that was a podcast that helped me get again money, clients, authority, experience, all of that, meet some great people and stuff. So then I said, I've been thinking about, I've been talking to all these people, and these are some awesome women that I'm talking to. Let's have a summit because I had done summits previously before it for my personal training business. So I knew how lucrative they could be and how they get you out there in front of people. So I had this knowledge in the back of my head that I could do these things. And so I just kind of put them together and boom. So Unmarket Your Business, the book came out in 2017. I think right after that, I did the podcast. And then I actually, that same year, I had my very first summit on this side because I had done like 3 summits already for personal training. And now I had this one. It was all about business. And I think it was like online business success or something. And so that was the first of 8 summits that I've done since 2017. And not every book has a summit, but I use that first book, that very first book that I did. All my content comes from there because I knew I was like, look, I had blog posts before that, and that's how I got the content in the first place. I had blog posts, had things I had written, so I put all that together and created the book. So I knew that my content creating craziness was, hey, this is good. I can go to this book. I can. I even went through the book and marked out stuff that I wanted to talk about, both in the podcast, on social media, um, as something for a blog or whatever. So I had my content. And that's another good thing about a book. Once you create this book, whether you're creating a journal like book or a planner, you can get content out of there. I mean, I can create a whole blog post off of just one sentence. Let me just see how this works, right? You can create a podcast off of that book or off of that one sentence, or you can create a summit. So and I have a student. So she did the exact same thing. We started working together and I told her about my plan. She was like, "Oh, that sounds really interesting." She kind of did it a little backwards. I think she did the podcast first because she had been trying to do a podcast forever. And then she told me, she said, "I don't like summits. I don't do them. They're just too much for me. Just da da da." I was like, "Well, can you just do this one?" My very first one. I was like, "Come on, Nathan, you can." She was like, she did it. I couldn't get her off summits then, and now she's done, I think, four of her own, and she's participated in summits. And then last year, I believe it was last year or year before last year, I can't even remember. But that was last year. She put out her first book, and it was a 90-day activate your faith journal. And just the same stuff that I said. And she's gone on to create other things, but her mastermind, some small, workshops and stuff. So it can that's what I did it for. Because I knew the power of the book, the podcast, and the summit, and putting those three things together back to back in sequence or whatever you want to do, they all give you that authority and they all give you these ideas and they allow you to meet different people. Just think about all the people that you've met, including me, for your summit that you're doing, and that you're going to do some other things with the content that you have here. It just helps you not to have to worry about content. It's right there, and all you got to do is open up your book, or go look at a podcast, or look at your summit for someone. And several of the people that I've had on my summits, they've either become my client, they've asked me to do a summit for them, or I've helped them write their book or help them get their blog start or something. It's just a cycle. We're finished with this thing. Okay, we're gonna do this. Now we're going back to this. So it's kind of like I don't want to say never ending clients or never ending money, but it's kind of like that. It can be like that.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's why I like to do the conference one. I like connecting with others and
I do
learning
too.
other people's stories, getting to know them and their
Hmm.
businesses and connecting with the attendees. I love doing the live events during the week and
Hmm.
things like that because I just think there's so much value in community. With what you are creating with the book and then the podcast and then the summit, I'd love to hear kind of what were the growth, like what was the result from that first one you did? What growth did you see? What kind of either sales or clients did you pick up? Like, what did that look like for you in the grand scheme of things?
Um, I would have to say that it gave me my footing to move
Mhm.
forward in the web design business because we had the web design business before, right? And then I went on to do personal training. I wasn't really doing a lot of web design stuff. And then I came back to it, but it just helped me because the authority already and the testimonials that I had. I remember one of my summits, and this was probably 2021 or 2022. I actually made about, I want to say probably about 20,000 off of that one summit because someone who I interviewed said, "Oh, Carol, I need you to do my website for me." And then another person said, "Oh, I want to be in this coaching thing with you." And then I sold. And the other thing that we can't forget about summits is they make you money because you sell the packages. You sell the packages to people, you have the upgrades. And then I had it set up so that I think I was selling for $47 for the whole summit. I had 30 people, or right about 30 people. It was one day, so that they were back to back to back to back every 15 minutes. People only had 15 minutes. And so I would tell I would come in and say, "Hey, if y'all don't want to stay around all day, because we were on from I think it was like 9:30 in the morning till 5 at night. I was totally exhausted, but so happy. And in the end, right? I said, if you don't want to stay around, I mean, go ahead and upgrade. And they did. They upgraded. And so that was $47. But then I had a program that I was giving them when they upgraded. I think it was my social media success program or something. And then I had another one-time offer that was after that because I was using Thrive Card at the time. And some of my things were 47, some were 97, and some were over $200. So that contributed, plus people seeing me and me talking about what I did and all that. They jumped in. And then I had some other people who said, "Oh, I've been talking to you for a long time. I really need to get this done. Let's do it now." So about
Mhm.
$20,000 off of one summit. Now, usually on the summits I do, it's usually a couple thousand that I'll make. And 100 to maybe 300 email building my list and stuff. It just all depends on the subject, and it all depends on everything. Depends on everything, right? So
Yeah.
it just depends. But I love doing something because I can make money. The thing is, and meet people and new people and all of that. And the podcast, like I said, they're listening for you. Right now, I'm using the podcast as my top of the funnel piece. I want people to discover me, which they're doing through the podcast, and then go down my funnel and see what else that I can do for them or help them, or if they want to pay for something, if they want to go to YouTube, things like that. And then, of course, the books are there because I get book clients now. People saying, "Oh, you're a best-selling author. Help me to become a best-selling author, Carol. I want to do this and stuff." So the bottom line is, even if you're not wanting to do books for people, podcasts for people, summits for people, you just want to do it for yourself, you can keep all that money for yourself. and,
Mhm.
and it just kind of works together. You promote the podcast on the summit. You promote the summit on the podcast. You talk about your books on the summit and the podcast. You talk in your book about the other things that you've done. You're kind of like bragging on yourself without really bragging on yourself. Because, as women, we're like, "Oh, I don't want to toot my own horn." Well, I do not feel that way. I love doing what I do. I know that God has blessed me to do this. So I'm just grateful to be able to do it. And every single time I get a book to bestseller, I'm like, "Oh, thank you, Jesus," because I'm like sweating before that thing happens. Even though I know it should go well, I'm still like that. I'm just giddy and just helping them get things out there. And I think that kind of attitude that I have helps me with my clients when they want to come and work with me, because they're none of them believe that they're going to get a best-selling book. None of them. I was like, "This is going to be a bestseller," and they're like, "Really? How?" I was like, "'Cause we're gonna work at it." As a matter of fact, I have two of my clients' books. Before we even started promoting them, I had just uploaded them. We had uploaded them to Amazon within a couple of days. They went to bestseller. We didn't do any promotions. None at all. It was just the fact of how the book was created, the subject matter, the cover, the beauty of it, everything that people are like, "Yeah, I want to get this book." So then I say, I told you it's gonna be a bestseller. Because right now I've taken almost 100 purpose-driven entrepreneurs and made them into best-selling authors. So I feel really good, and I know
I
it
love it.
works. I know it works.
Think that deserves tooting your horn on that.
Yes, definitely.
So, well, and I think we need to be like proud of how what we are successful at, like what our strengths are. That's the
Mhm,
whole
mhm.
point. We all have different strengths and we need to use them the way God wants us to use them. And that is
Yep.
what you're doing with this strategy. What would you say? How much time would someone realistically need to dedicate to this strategy each week to see success? What does that look like?
Well, I'll break it down like I do with my program. So the bestseller lab, then I have a podcast lab and a virtual summit lab. But the bestseller lab, we meet twice a month on Zoom, and they get assignments. And in 3 months or 90 days, they have their best-selling book done, completed. Now, if you were doing it all yourself, you could easily do it inside of 3 months. If you followed what I told you to do, you do it like I say, you could do it. You could do it. You can do the podcast. It may not take you 3 months, but to try to get the ideas together, all your equipment, which we don't need a whole lot, the guests and stuff. I would definitely give yourself 3 months. Just give yourself time because this is not your lane. Unless you're a podcast creator, a book publisher, or a summit creator, this ain't your lane. So just jumping in there and doing it, I would first say get somebody to kind of help you along, a coach like me, or you can do it the old fashioned way. Go to YouTube Versity and look at YouTube, go get a couple of books, read them, and talk to some people. But either way, you're going to have to do some research and get it all out there on the table. If there's nothing that comes to you like, boom, yes, I just know all this stuff. It's taken me a while to do it and to get my system together. But you can definitely do it. I would say I would plan for 3 months for each of them, just giving yourself time. And if you finish ahead of them, that's great. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer just because of life. But 3 months and, a couple hours a week, it doesn't really have to take that much more time. It's not something that you gotta, cover yourself up in and don't see any light of day or not bathe or anything like that for weeks or months at a time. It is not. You can go along with your regular activities. Just set aside some time. And when I first wrote the book, I did 1 hour a day, Monday through Friday, in the morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and just wrote. That was the thing. And that helped me. I didn't edit, I didn't erase anything. I just wrote. And then after I finished that, I think that first one took me 90 days to do it. Right. And then after I finished that, then I started looking around like, what else do I want in this book? What are the little, extras that people would the charts and all that stuff. So I started putting that in. And actually wound up, it took me a year to actually finish the whole book because of life. So you have to, I'm not, I don't tell anybody to do anything that I haven't done. That's why when they come into the program, they're like, oh, 3 months is crazy. We're not going to have a book in 3 months. I'm like, yes, we are, because we're going to diligently do this thing. And we're only meeting twice a month, right? And then you got other things to do because I know you got a business to run, you got kids or a husband or something to take care of. So it can fit into what you wanted to do. You just have to be singular minded that you're going to do it. If you started today and then you don't touch it for 5 weeks, you're like, see, I knew it wasn't going to be done in 3 months. Well, you haven't done anything for 5 weeks. Well, how you think things just going to magically appear out of the sky? No, you got to work on it.
Yes, we need to take intentional action in order for something
Mhm.
to actually be produced. So
Right.
that's a really good point there. And why, I mean, just an hour a day, what that can do for you when you're
Yes.
writing. So, what would you say as we wind down here? What's the first step that someone should take to implement this unmarketing strategy?
Oh, actually, there's 3 steps in one. First one is to know who your audience is and who you're talking to, because
Mm,
that's what everything is planned around. If you're going to make a book straight for your audience, you got to know who they are. What do they want? You know, the second thing is to know what keeps them up at night or what stops them from going to sleep. And I have been doing this a long time, and I know that it's not clarity. Clarity is not going to wake you up at night, but paying the bills or graduating on time or nowadays buying some eggs, those are the things that wake you up at night. So whatever they're thinking, whatever, that's why you got to know them so you can know what wakes them up at night or keeps them from going to sleep so that you can offer a solution. And that's the third one, the how. How are you going to solve it for them? How are you going to solve this problem? Because they're walking around like zombies. They're not sleeping. They want this stuff, but they don't know, number one, is it available? Can I do it? Or, how does this happen? And sometimes, a lot of times, people have these issues, but they don't know that there is a solution for them. Like right now, no one thought that, hey, I can write a journal, I can create a journal and put it on Amazon and get best-selling author and make money off of it and then go to podcast it and then go to a virtual summit. And at the end of an entire year, I'll say 9 months to a year, you're going to have a thriving business. You're going to be making money. You're going to be an authority like you never thought of. Now, you may not have a million or so people following you, but how many people do you really need to be in your tribe for you to make good money? Money that you can, put a roof over your head, get some stuff in your hair, put some makeup on. How much money do you actually really need? So those are the
mm.
things. Know who you're talking to, know what their problem is, and know how you're going to solve it. When you get those 3 things, the sky is the limit to what you can create and how you can solve their problems.
Yeah. And in 9 months, you're birthing a business, baby.
That's it.
I love
Or
it.
taking yours to the next level, either one.